In every country now, there are two things that a candidate needs to do to get elected. Attack Bush. And two, be the furthest to the left. That's true all over Latin America. This is something new, and now we see it in America. These things don't just happen. It is wrong to think that. Something's been at work underneath the surface for a long time for 500,000 or 1 million people to pour into the streets in Los Angeles. It is not just that this new bill 4437 came up. It is the byproduct of years of things that are happening. I want to describe some of them to you and understand that this is the first wave of what is going to be a whole period. And these things come periodically and they change the world and they change it permanently. And we don't know how far any wave will go, how far things can go. But what a moment for us to be here in our lives, humans, in this planet. This is an opportunity, because when waves like this begin, they are very difficult for those who have created the problems in the world to control them. Now, in the United States, they have an association that specializes in this. It's called To Control, To Bury, To Destroy, To Prevent Mass Movement. It's called the Democratic Party. That is the reason for their existence. What happened when they passed this bill, 4437? Now, understand what this bill is. This bill calls on declaring 11 million people criminals who should be in prison for at least 3 years. It called for criminalizing a whole section of the working people. Now, all it does is take to its logic the absurdity and insanity of how they have been treating the latest immigrants into America. No immigrant group, except African Americans, have ever been treated, and I would say a non-immigrant group, the Native Americans, have ever been treated the way they want to treat Latinos, and mainly Mexicans and Central Americans. When the immigrants came from Ireland and Italy, they got the right to vote before they were citizens. They never were treated the way they have treated Mexico. No Italian or Irish, German ever went to prison for getting a driver's license, like Santa Reyes is. This is a return to Jim Crow, to apartheid. That is what they are openly talking about on television. And this bill passed the Congress. That's a comment of an expression of a reality that is unbelievably and shocking before the world of thinking people. And finally, in America, in spite of the existence of the Democratic Party, the people are pouring into the streets. Became part of the United States. It wasn't done with a referendum or a vote. There were 250,000 indigenous people in California. And there were 6,000 Mexicans. And 300 European Americans took it over by force and violence. And for them to claim that they have the right to be here, their descendants, but not the indigenous people of this continent, the Mexican. You know, you have to stop and think. When, you know, this thing about the word, should we call for amnesty? And a lot of people don't like that word because it implies you did something wrong. But I am for amnesty for the European Americans. Because we cannot hold people responsible for what their great-great-grandparents did. But these European Americans, when they arrived in California, they set out to steal everything from the Mexicans and to kill all the indigenous people. That's what they did. And now they talk with that arrogance. You see people like Arnold Schwarzenegger with that arrogance against people who are just moving from one part of the world to another to feed their families. It's not a crime. Every human all over the world, everyone at some point or other has considered whole layers of people to move. This is a process that's happening. We have to understand that. And the first thing we do is take the 11 million people that are here and accept that. There is no one in the rational wing of the people who run this society on their for-profit system that is based upon what is advantageous to the richest 1% or 1/10 of 1%. None of them want to deport these people. Then how in the world did they ever get that bill through Congress. What is happening is that their racism and their attempt to super exploit third world people got them into a contradiction that they created all this momentum with talk shows and all this rightist stuff and Lou Dobbs nuttiness that their own organizations get out of control. Or it's just a ploy. You propose something horrendous in order to get something bad. And have the people say, oh, you know, that's the whole role of the Democrats. Republicans were going to put you all in jail, all 11 million, and destroy the economy, and have all their people in charge go broke. That's not what they were planning to do. But with this, now you can have the Dianne Feinsteins and the Democrats get up and say, you see, we're saving you. We're going to allow some of you to stay. And we're going to we're just going to break up a few families and bring some people over here as guest workers. And of course, they can only have minimum wage jobs. Can you imagine putting into a law what language you have to learn? That's a totalitarian concept. You know, it really makes me want to, you know, I get real angry. I have an anger management problem. I want to get up and say, the minute we're a majority, everyone has to learn Spanish. This is, you know, I was arguing with my wife about this. She's going, oh no, but it's very important that everybody learn English so they can tell you, yeah, that's all true. Everybody has to learn English. Yeah, we all know that. But you don't make it a law. There's a racist aspect to that. Controlled and manipulated. What we have here is not really democracy. It's a very peculiar system that's been very successful in keeping the people from having representatives. Because not only do they outlaw proportional representation or a second round, having a second round of runoff system, they get the people to not bother to vote. In this election, 60 to 70% of the people in California will not vote. In the primaries they just had, and I happened to see the figure in Texas in the Republican Party primary, 10% voted. This doesn't bother them. This is not headlines. They don't want the people to have representation, and yet every progress, every issue, every gain we have made in our history has been by masses of people independent of these two parties organizing. That's how the unions were built, that's how the anti-war movement was built, and that is how this movement, that is right now developing a new civil rights struggle in America, starting with an explosion, which is what has just happened and is happening. We're living through that explosion. Let me tell you some of the things why this explosion is happening. For the last 35 years, I used to say 30 in my talks, but I just realized it's 35 years now. 90% of the people of the United States have had no pay increase. That has never happened before in American history. The economy has more than doubled. How can the economy double and the people do not participate in the game? That is eating at people quietly and privately. One of the things you're taught in this society is you don't tell people how much you make. You know, you don't go visit your neighbor and say, you know, I make $42,000 a year. It's like you're taught when you get a job and they tell you, keep this to yourself. You're not to know. No one's to know. People think they're the only one. I didn't get a pay raise. I know. Let me calculate this. You know, I used to make $30,000. Now I make $50,000. You calculate the inflation. Gee, I'm making the same amount. Latinos are making less. You know? Well, you keep it quiet because you think everybody else. You just watch TV and all they talk about all the time. And wages are going up and whoa and this and so. The fact is that 90% of our people have had no pay increase for 35 years. That is, and the economy is strong as can be.